Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Michaela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today is Friday, which is story time, or the day of our chapter exchange. If you're writing with me and you wish to exchange chapters, then send your chapter with written permission to writewithmichaela@gmail.com. I will post the email address at the end of the video. I'm looking forward to reading your chapters, even if I can't read them all on the channel. All chapters read on Fridays, or any work. It doesn't have to be just Friday. It could be the Tuesday stuff. All chapters read on Fridays, whether they are mine or another writer's work, are copyright protected material, and no one may use any part in writing their own stories. This story is PG-13, so if you're under 13 years of age, you need parental guidance. The story is in its rough draft stage, just as the last two stories we heard. The title of this story is Elloni's Pride, and today we are reading Chapter 8 out of Book 1. If you would like to read along, then send to the email I stated earlier and request a PDF of the chapter. Make sure you're specific. Now let's start. Elloni's Pride, Book 1, Breaking Point. This is Chapter 8. Browser starts his plan. Barso, thought Browser. Now I need open or release, and close or secure. Soon the words came to him, so he lowered his right arm to the ground so the cuff wouldn't clang when it released his arm. Then he noticed movement outside his cell and realized it was a shift change. The new soldiers peered into the cell to make sure he was there and he hadn't moved before they relieved the soldiers on duty. Browser didn't realize that the king and commanders had discussed not returning to the village because at this point they didn't think it was worth bothering with. The king had decided that if the Linkers were coming here, then he wanted all his soldiers here to capture them. Browser also didn't realize that the king had sent soldiers to the village the past 2 days and had burned it down yesterday. He only knew that each time his symbol lit up, a soldier watching his cell would run down the hall, and he thought the soldier reported the event to the king. But that was as far as he supposed things. Browser did feel an urgency for the new soldiers to release the soldiers on duty and for them to leave. He didn't know why he felt so anxious. It was almost like he felt he would forget the words before he had a chance to use them. Finally, the soldiers settled down, and Browser said the charm. The click and clang, clank he heard from the lock releasing and the cup opening and falling to the floor seemed to echo loudly in his cell. So Browser nervously looked at the window. He watched and listened for movement while his heart raced. Then he slowly raised his arm out of the cuff and brought his wrist to his other hand. He rubbed it. It had been a while since the soldiers had brought him out of his cell. Perhaps it had been a week or 2. He didn't really know time in here. Browser hadn't been studious to learn all the magic he could when he had the chance. He had his sword and his strength and thought that was enough. His most dangerous charm was the breath stealer charm. Mostly, he could only do things like unlock the cuffs or his cell door, but people around him always accused him of doing more. The last time the soldiers brought him down to the mines, a whole line of shovels just fell over, and no one was near them. Everyone stopped and looked at him, and while he could do such things, he hadn't, at least not to his knowledge. Once the shovels fell, the lead soldier punched him hard, and he fell back. The soldier said, "We'll have none of that." Browser wondered who they blamed when he wasn't there to accuse. He shook his head to himself and lowered his left arm to the floor. He once again said the charm, and once again the small sound seemed magnified to him. He rubbed his wrist and said the charm on his leg. His leg was stiff and didn't want to move. He knew he didn't like working in the mines, but if he hadn't worked them as often as he did, his limbs would atrophy and he would be useless. Browser thought to Dronsnide, "You're still useful, right? Your body and wings didn't atrophy, right?" "I might be a little stiff, but dragons have processes not to atrophy," thought Dronsnide. "This isn't the first time we've had to hide. Once man gets something in his mind, yeah, I'm a man, and I have a mind to get out of here," thought in Browser. "I've got chains loose on 2 legs. Loose as in they're off, or loose as in they aren't squeezing you anymore?" "They're not squeezing me anymore," thought Dronsnide. Browser nodded to himself. He might need to explore a little of the castle to find the best route to get Dronsnide out. He said the charm on his other leg, and he moved that one a little before he tried to stand. He walked around in his cell as he tried to gain back his movements. He reminded himself that the guards just changed, and now was the time to move, so after a few minutes he eased to the door. He didn't like using the breath stealer charm, but if he had a sword, he would still be killing the soldiers, or they him, since he wasn't full strength. He kept lower than the window, but he raised up enough to see out. He saw 3 guards. He thought, how is 3 double 2? Then he saw 2 more guards who were pacing a little way down the narrow tunnel to his cell. Ah, yes, 5 is definitely double 2. Now, I have to say the charm 5 times before anyone notices. Then he had another thought. Dronsnide, wasn't there a word for a wall? An invisible wall? Yes, that would be 2 words. But why are you putting up walls? We need to take down walls. Russell thought of that and looked around his cell. Moving walls out of his way was a whole lot more magic than he had, but he might have to try something drastic to get Dronsnide out of his cell. Russell turned back and peered out the window a few more seconds. Then he moved away from the cell door and paced a little while. He thought he needed to loosen his muscles up. The tailors had charms to zoom forward, so the group assigned to watch the soldiers practice made it to the area. They said their invisibility charms until they got to the benches. There were no spectators today, so most of the tailors just blended themselves in with a bench instead of keeping the invisibility. They all watched the soldiers because they were going to replicate what the soldiers did for Libya, so she could have the vital step of watching. They knew they wanted to do their best, so Libya wouldn't miss anything. They also knew there was a lot to watch. So one tailor watched gear, and one watched stance, and one watched the soldiers' moves, and another watched the opponent's soldiers' moves. All 12 of them watched something. And after half an hour, they would switch what they were watching. Excuse me. Broman hadn't ever walked so much, so he sat down. He opened his bundle and pulled out the potato he had bitten and took another bite. Then he offered the potato to Hagar. "What that for?" asked Hagar. "Food," said Broman with his mouth full. "You have to eat." "Oh, I eat leaves," said Hagar as he grabbed a mouthful. Broman nodded his head. Nice. Food for you surrounds us. Can you eat grass too? Me no know, said Hagar. Brahman rearranged the knife he had tied on with the rope. What that for? To cut things, stated Brahman. He ran his hand over his head. Actually, I'll need to cut my hair soon. My pa said civilized men cut their hair and don't let it grow long. I'm not sure it matters so much, because if the soldiers find me out here, they will know I don't belong in a village or a kingdom. But if we go into one of those, then I'll need to cut it. Does it hurt? Asked Hagar. Brahman shook his head. No. He set down his potato and pulled out the knife. He grabbed some hair on the left side of his head, and then he cut off the handful. You no need to do that, thought Hagar. I help you. Then Hagar breathed just a little fire on the right side of Brahman's head. Whoa! What are you doing? Asked Brahman as he dropped the knife, rolled away, and patted his head. He quickly jumped up, grabbed up a rag, and patted out the fire. You senseless dragon! You don't catch me on fire! Just leave! You keep walking! I don't want you around me! Hagar hung his head. I tried to help. Hair gone on side I did. Go, said Brahman as he pointed. Go away! I don't need you! You're going to kill me! He bent down and picked up a stick and threw it at Hagar. The stick didn't hurt Hagar, but the words hurt Hagar's feelings. He turned and walked towards the sun. He still didn't know when he was supposed to walk away from the sun, but he knew Brahman was very angry with him. Brahman plopped down to sit. Oh, that dragon! I can't believe he caught me on fire. He picked up his knife and cleaned off the dirt. He sheathed it and put the sheath back in the rope. He took another bite of potato after he dusted it off, and a bite of dried meat. After a few minutes, he got up, dusted off, and headed south instead of east. He was not going the same direction as his dragon. Bradley let Coulter rest occasionally. While they sat down, Bradley went over the words to the charm in his mind. He said the charm over and over again until his mind drifted to the last night in the village, and he saw the fire on the homes, and the massive black dragons, and the trampled gardens, and the Trouters helping Ma Trouter's mother out of their burning home, and the 2 toddlers who were killed for nothing, really, and the mother, Ma Singer, who tried to protect her child and couldn't, and Coulter's parents, Ma and Pa Lexer. Bradley closed his eyes and shook his head to himself. During that night, he had stolen glances at his pa, and he knew his pa's thoughts, but not his ma's. Then, as his mind drifted, he remembered Browser's name, and he wanted to know why Browser would tell when dragons hatched. So, without consciously thinking about casting a charm, the words to the charm ran through his mind, along with Browser's name. And he thought, why would Browser tell King Damonte that the dragons hatched? Who is Browser? Is he truly the last linker, like Soflin thought? Browser paused his pacing and thought, just one question at a time? Geez. Okay. I told no one anything, but the soldiers watched my cell. He came back to his present surroundings and looked towards the cell window. The link was still there, so he thought, everything I think Dronsnide can verify. Anyway, they saw the symbol light up and told the stupid king, I am Browser. Who are you? Bradley looked around himself, surprised at the answers he was receiving. Did I cast a charm on Browser? And now I have 3 charms going? Oh, man. I guess I need to be more careful. Still, the connection to Browser will be good. Bradley didn't know how to direct thoughts to just his own mind, so he didn't realize that Browser got everything. He thought, I'm Bradley. I would have said that I'm no one, really. But the witch Soflin says I'm a bringer or a uniter. She says or thinks that the word now is hunter. Hunter is a term I would use, thought Browser. A hunter hunted me down and brought me here some years ago. I don't know how long. A person doesn't sense the passage of time the same way as when he can see the sun. But I understand the older terms as well. You had more questions? Bradley thought. Yeah. Are you the last known linker? That would be dismal news, but I believe it is fairly accurate of the last group of us. Others may be alive and hiding, but I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how to find them. But you could. I could, thought Bradley. Look, listen, think, whatever. I'm in the middle of a plan of escape, and I need to focus. The change of guards has already happened. I need to get out now. So when they look in my cell and don't see me, then I've had time to maneuver through the castle, rescue my dragon, and leave. Too bad you couldn't put a soldier in your place, thought Bradley, as he remembered Lydia was a twin, and the time outside for Libya was better than Coulter's no time outside. I might could do that. Can I think to you after this? Bradley thought of the 2 words that Soflin had said, and decided to add it to all 3 charms that he cast. He thought, I'm new at casting charms. But just now I added the words for the 2-way links. Okay, after I get out, I will think the names of the other linkers I knew, and you can cast charms. Bradley felt that Browser had focused his thoughts back to his pending escape, so he focused on his surroundings. Then he saw wild lettuce. He rolled to his hands and knees and pushed up to a semi-squat. He picked a leaf and tasted it to make sure. Then he told Coulter about the lettuce, and they picked some leaves and ate them. Dronside, did you get any of that? I think there was a time delay or something, because I received your thoughts just fine, but his were sometimes overlaid on yours, and things were echoing. Not Dronside. Well, I like his idea of putting a soldier in here in the chains, and I'm thinking the soldier would need to be in the rags I'm in to make it look better. Let me get to work. You use your senses and see if you can determine the halls I need to take. Dronside agreed, although he wasn't sure how he would find halls much beyond where he was currently. Libya was leaning over the book and trying to pronounce things, and Baldian was beside her, repeating the words Libya said. Baldian was determined to learn to read and to help Libya remember everything. The last linker will help the EW. What do those letters say? Asked Libya as she paused and looked around. Ooh, thought Baldian. Then the mark on Libya's arm glowed once again, and soon Felicity was fluttering in and thinking, we need to find those dragons. Libya closed her eyes and breathed in the air. At first she thought she was seeing Elloni's cave, but then she saw an egg, and beyond she saw the copper orb. She didn't know how to control the pictures so well yet, so she just watched the egg start to crack open. After a little while, the tailors saw Libya smiling, and Baldian thought to them, she sees a bright yellow head, bright like the sun. The head is looking around. Oh, wow, the wings just burst out, and they're orange. The little baby is going down on all 4, and her feet and her belly is red like fire. The tailors didn't want to interrupt the vision, so they sent thoughts to Baldian. Is she listening to her message orb? No. She is shaking off the shell, thought Baldian. Now she is flapping her wings, or stretching them. The Taylors realized that Baldian had a lot of vocabulary and felt that had to do with her connection to Libya. And they knew that Libya had been out in her village some because of what Baldian had thought to them. They didn't know about the other linkers. She's breathing fire, thought Baldian. The Taylors looked at Libya and knew she was enjoying the images. Elloni entered the cave with more Taylors, and they watched Libya stand with her eyes closed as the symbol on her arm glowed, and they received the thoughts of Baldian's descriptions. Baldian thought to them that the baby dragon watched the message, and her name was Cremenia. When Libya opened her eyes and looked around the group, Felicity thought, "We need more Taylors at the castle. I've been thinking that job was too dangerous for so few of us to go. So I want 36 more volunteers. And I want 5 volunteers to find Cremenia. She is a female, according to the thoughts of Baldian and Libya, so she needs to be with Libya." Felicity arranged those things, and Libya went back to studying and learning. After she finished reading the passage, she would start some more physical training, or eat a couple of berries and then do more physical training. Browser had paced enough to where his joints didn't feel as stiff, so he thought it was time. He especially wanted to get out before his symbol lit up again. He was glad the soldiers didn't seem to be near the window when it lit up this time. Browser had quickly placed his arm against his body and turned his back to the window. He was glad that the soldiers didn't notice the light because he wasn't in chains, and they would have known that immediately. He quietly went to the window of his cell in a more squatting position, and he raised up enough to peer out and count the 5 guards. He didn't want them to run and report anything, so he might need an air wall at the end of the narrow passage, but not so close to his cell that the 2 soldiers pacing would bump into it. He decided to do that charm first. After he did that charm, he watched a few minutes to make sure he left enough room and no one suspected anything yet. Next, he decided which soldier to steal the breath from first. The soldier was hard to see because Browser didn't want to raise up too high, but he risked it when the pacing soldiers were walking away from him. The soldier he would do first was sitting down on the hinge side of the door, and he was leaning back. He clearly wasn't fully alert. So Browser started his charm and hoped the other soldiers just thought the guy dozed off. A few minutes later, he sent mind messages to the next soldier to sit down and lean against the wall. The message included, "He's sleeping, so surely I can sit down a bit." After the soldier sat down, Browser worked the charm a second time. He repeated this process for the 3rd soldier. And then he paused to think how he should handle the 2 that were pacing. He thought to Dronsnide, "Is there a way to have a charm hold and not release until a certain time?" "I'm sure there is," thought Dronsnide. "Maybe that boy knows the word." Maybe. What was his name? I didn't get that part of the conversation, thought Dronsnide. "Bradley! Hey, it's me, Browser. You can cast charms. I need the word for time." Bradley paused in his walking and looked around. Then he continued walking beside Coulter and thought, "I don't know many words. You want me to think to the witch?" "Yes, I need that word like 10 minutes ago." Bradley thought, Soflin? How do I think with you, and how do I know when I'm thinking with my father or Coulter or Browser?" Soflin and Lydia were walking in the narrow passage they had found, and things seemed peaceful. Several times Soflin had drifted into a meditative state. Now she felt the thoughts vibrating within her. She thought, You simply think of who you want to think with. If you've cast the charm, then you can think with several at one time. So if I wanted to connect you and Browser, I should have cast a charm on you instead of you adding the 2 words for two-way. Well, I don't know about that, thought Soflin. A lot of magic has died, so I'm not going to say impossible. Just not known about today as much. We need to find the tailors. They would know. Who are they? Never mind. You can tell me later. Right now, Browser needs the word for time. Browser? You're connected with him? Oh, this is good. Thanks for rethinking that because it didn't penetrate my understanding the first time. Okay, let's see. Why does he need time? Because there are a few different words. He's trying to escape. Do you want me to ask him? I'll just give you the words. For the charm to last a certain amount of time and then disappear, you would say trizezhe abrit, amount. If he wants the charm to wait to cast, then it should be trizezhe aspeta, amount. He should remember his numbers and units. Okay, thanks. I'll pass the words. Soflin looked around as Bradley's thoughts left her. Then she looked up and thought, Thank you, universe. Bradley was exactly what we needed. Browser received trizezhe abrit, amount, if you want the charm to last a certain time, and trizezhe aspeta, amount, if you want the charm to wait to cast. Soflin thought you would remember numbers and units. Or maybe she really thought it was too much to teach me with you in the middle of trying to escape. Thanks, Browser thought. I remember enough numbers and units to get me through this. Bradley left Browser to his own thoughts, and Browser said the first Breath Stealer charm with the time for the charm to wait to cast. And he remembered that one went at the beginning, where the other one could go at the beginning or the end. Browser timed it just right, so that both soldiers fell at exactly the same time. But Browser cringed when they did because of the loud echo of their armor hitting the stone floor. It made so much noise, Browser was sure the whole castle heard it. But no one came running towards them. So Browser started the next part of the plan, which was dragging a soldier in his cell and exchanging his clothes for the soldier's armor after he magically unlocked his cell door. Bradley wanted to continue walking east and didn't want to go north, but he felt a pull that direction. So he had Coulter stop. He found a branch that had fallen recently, and he used the branch to erase a lot of their immediate tracks. Then he picked up the bundle once again, and he and Coulter turned north. Why did you sweep the woods? Asked Coulter. Bradley smiled to himself, and then exaggerated his steps. Every time we step down, we leave a mark or a print, and a tracker can follow them. He pointed to the ground where he had just stepped. Here the dirt is fairly hard, so we don't sink and leave a deep track or print. So I can brush the marks away. If the tracker is any good, he can follow you even in the grass. Coulter's eyes opened very wide. Wow, so even if they can't see you? Yes, even if they can't see you, replied Bradley. Now, King Damantade uses dogs to smell us, so he may not have any really good trackers. Oh, but the dogs can still smell us? Yes, but our scent doesn't stay as long as the prints, unless it rains. I don't know about you, but I'm not hoping for rain. I'm hoping the dogs don't return to the village until the next full moon. What's rain like? Asked Coulter. It's like, well, let's see. It's like water pouring from the sky. Sometimes it comes down in little drops, but sometimes it feels like the sky is pouring a bucket of water on your head, and it keeps pouring it. Oh, replied Coulter. My pa would come down in the cellar when it rained, and we would play games. Bradley's heart lurched inside him as he remembered the soldiers finding the games and asking about them just before killing Coulter's parents. Bradley would not tell that to Coulter, so he just nodded as he realized that up to this point, Coulter probably liked it when it rained. They continued walking. After Hushman's group had picked a lot of berries, they walked a little deeper in the woods and sat down to eat. The young ones took a nap, and everyone rested. Sylvie wasn't sure how long they would rest or when they would start again, but she didn't worry on it. She had some spun cotton in her pocket, so she pulled it out and worked on the hat she was knitting. In a few months, they would all need hats of some sort. Kala copied her mother and pulled out her cotton she had spun into thread, and she also started knitting. Very quietly, Hushman told Thilda that he had a connection to Bradley. Thilda said, I don't think we should keep things just to ourselves. I'm not leaving anyone out, he said quietly. Then he motioned to the young ones. Except maybe the young ones. We don't know these woods, or if our enemy patrols out here, so I will talk quietly. He motioned to Sylvie and her children. They are certainly welcome to listen in. Sylvie looked up and acknowledged Hushman, and then went back to looking at her knitting. Kosher asked, How do you have a connection with Bradley? Sylvie looked up. We still have manners. Sir, added Kosher. Hushman glanced around the group and then said, Well, this may sound like I'm senseless, but I had Bradley's thoughts in my head, and Bradley thought to me that a witch taught him a charm to cast. Now, I don't know what words Bradley used to cast the charm, and I don't know if I can think with him, but he can check in on us. Actually, he thought he would need advice. That certainly sounds like Bradley, said Thilda in a normal voice. Hushman looked around to see if he could tell what the people thought by the looks on their face. But Kosher was looking at Sylvie. Ma, do you think it's the same thing when Lydia knew about Libya? Lydia knew Libya was gone? Kosher asked. He too didn't whisper like Hushman had at first. Sylvie stopped her work. I'm not sure. Libya was supposed to have a connection with her dragon. She was a linker, and linkers can get thoughts from their dragons. Lydia and Libya are twins, and history says twins are special in many ways unknown to us. So perhaps they are linked together like Libya is to her dragon. I think Lydia had a dream about Libya, stated Kala. Well, started Sylvie as she glanced around the circle. In the old folklore, you could visit someone while dreaming, but you had to really want to see them, and you would only see them if you wished them well. Kosher motioned with his thumb towards Hushman. Well, he's not a dragon, nor is he Bradley's twin. So can we link together? Did the castle keep that information from us? Or can you just link with your family? Hushman held up his hands. I said Bradley cast a charm on me, and there is something about the boy. He looked at his wife before he continued. Bradley had a sixth sense or something, because he could find the linkers. He's a hunter, gasped Sylvie. Mom, said Kala. He didn't tell the soldiers anything as we sat there and watched the soldiers burn houses and throw fire in tunnels. Bradley didn't say anything. I didn't say he did, defended Sylvie. Hunters know linkers without seeing their marks. But still, that would be a term for the enemy, stated Kosher. Bradley is on our side because he didn't give anyone away. There has to be another word to describe Bradley. Sylvie sighed. I wasn't accusing Bradley, she stated. I don't know another word, and I think it's good to have him. We need all the different people we used to have. Kosher turned towards Hushman. But that doesn't answer the question of can we link or cast charms or whatever? So, sir, would you please ask Bradley for the words the next time he thinks with you? If we could link, then if soldiers near us, we could use that instead of talking out loud. Hushman agreed to ask Bradley for the words, and the conversation died down as they rested. Hushman would let them rest for several hours, and then they would continue southwest. Okay, writers, that is the end of chapter 8. Leave a comment on if you were Browser and what you would think if you suddenly had Bradley's thoughts in your head. Or leave a comment on if you were Browser and trying to escape when suddenly your symbol lit up again. You know, the soldiers see it every time pretty much and they go run off. So if your symbol lit up, how would you feel? Would you be suddenly very scared? I might. And I keep telling you, rough draft, rough draft, rough draft. As I was reading, I found 3 mistakes in the book, but I don't know that I can remember to go find them and fix them in the story, but hopefully I can. Anyway, there's 3 mistakes. I think I read over it to where you wouldn't notice and everything, but still, I think I need to add something about the Breath Stealer charm being very powerful and stuff, because otherwise it would be just too easy just to do the Breath Stealer spell. Maybe have to put in how it can only be done on one at a time or something, and something. I'm not really sure, but I need to fix that a little bit, tweak it a little bit so that the reader understands it's not something you can say a Breath Stealer spell for a whole village. No, you can't do that. It's one at a time. Okay, join me Tuesday for writing prompt or some jargon. Join me Friday for chapter 9, Elloni's Pride, Breaking Point, Browser's Escape. Visit my website, bymckella.com, and read some character bios. If you read some, then leave a comment on which ones you've read. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and the bell so we can continue to write together. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, please share it with them. This is McKella with Write with McKella. Bye for now.